Mineral sands has long been a thorn in the side of Exxaro, and I think every time the results come around, I ask you what's happening on the mineral sands front. Are you ultimately going to pull out? You've been relatively quiet around the operation now for some time. Should we read into that you are going to look to divest from that business?
No, we took a decision last year that we would review our business, the mineral sands business, which is what we're doing. We've got an operation at KZN where we have a mine as well as a plant. We've decided that we're not going to invest more money on the mine development, which is about, at the time we estimated the capital required to be just in excess of 1.2 billion rand. So we thought, no, we could deploy that amount of money somewhere else. Of course, the recession played a key role around that time, so it was important that you became careful.
You were conservative with your resources,
indeed.
Built up a bit of a war chest.
I think it was prudent to do just that. But I mean, the mineral sands environment is a very tough one, because it's not just it doesn't follow the normal cycle that all commodities are following. If you look at the trend, it just trots a little bit. I mean, it just does move. It just moves at
Ultimately,
its own
though, can it be a profitable contributor to the business?
It can be. It can be. But and we're starting to see a lot of movements in the marketplace, simply because, one, the demand, I think, is starting to come back. Two, the prices, and people have recognized that we've got to do something about the prices, and they're starting to show some upward signs. Why is that? Simply because a lot of players have consolidated. There's been lots of consolidation in the industry, and as a result, fewer players are there, and there are fewer players who are producing, and people are not investing in to a large degree on that one. And as a result, I have a great hope and belief that this business is a good business and it has a future.
But Sipho, if you've pulled back on the capital expenditure and you're not deploying the 1.2 billion rand needed, isn't that a precursor to saying we're going to get out of here? I
think it's true. I mean, it's a fair comment you're making. But at the same time, like all businesses, I mean, there are businesses that you have today that we would consider marginal mines. But if the prices were to come up and the exchange rate weakens a little bit, your rand dollar, your rand weakens, and people say, well, now there is a reason for me to invest, and people will do that. You know, someone may take another decision on that score. We may take another decision because, you know, if you start thinking of KZN sands, if we were to go ahead and end up closing it down, you probably are looking at 800 people, and I mean the factor of that, I mean the multiplier, if you look at people within the community, it's massive, the impact that it would have. So all those things we have to consider, because we are citizens of this country, also concerned about unemployment.
You bring us to the rand and the exchange rate, which has obviously been a big bugbear for resource companies with the stronger rand. Is this a big problem for you?
No, it is a factor. I'm not going to run away from that, because it does have a serious and a material impact on our business. But we've taken a view that, you know what, if you get into this business, you've got to ensure that you can survive with a very strong rand. Now, it depends on how strong a rand is. I mean, if you're going to have a rand as strong as 650, probably a lot of our businesses will go under. But we as Exxaro are somehow slightly cushioned towards that, simply because the bulk of the coal that we supply is to the domestic market, which is Eskom. And as a result, we don't feel the impact of the exchange rate. But once we start looking at bigger other issues like exports, your mineral sands, your zinc business is more or less internationally benchmarked. So that tends to impact the business, but otherwise our business is really somehow protected.
We've spent enough time on Exxaro. Now let's move to Sipho Nkosi. What is your leadership style? How would you define it?
Well, more participatory, really. And I think in our organization we do a lot of things by consensus, but it doesn't mean that consensus just at every cost. I mean, we debate matters, and when a time comes to make a decision, we do that one. The reason why we open up matters is because it's important to get buy-in, people to work with you in terms of what you're doing. So yeah, participatory kind of management is the style that I would pursue.
What type of people do you surround yourself with?
I would like to believe that the team we've got, my executive team, is probably one of the top teams in this country. I know that initially when we formed Exxaro, particularly when I took over, because we made a lot of changes, there were people who were saying, we've got a problem with your management team. But I think the guys have proven that they can they can take tough decisions, and they can really focus on making the business work. So I'm quite excited by the team that we've got. We've got people. I think the problem with them is that they don't have too much grey hair. And the good thing about me is that I've got grey hair, so I can sit down with them and laugh at them and then argue with them, and then, you'd need that balance.
Who do you think shaped your leadership style? I see in some of the research that I've done that your father has played a very important role in your life.
My father played a key role in my life, because I wouldn't be where I am today without him, and the lessons that I learned about life in general I would never have picked up. But in business as well, there are people who really have made an impact. I can't even mention all of them. There's lots of them that have influenced me, from my old days at Ford all the way to Anglo, to BHP Billiton, and all the way to where I am.
Can you share some of your life lessons with us at this point?
Well, life is quite an interesting journey. Sometimes you sit back as a young person and you think, this is where I will be going. But life tends to take you to places you never even dreamed of being there. And life sometimes can surprise you in terms of things that it dispenses or gives towards you. I worked in the motor industry. I worked in the mining industry. I worked in the energy industry, that is ABB and Alstom. But I never thought that all things will come and be useful to me today. And all those experiences have come, and they've come in handy today.
And what about your family life? You speak of your wife. Is it important to have a solid base at home?
I think it is. I think without family, you wouldn't be where you are. For me, that's one key component. I spend all my life at work, but I get home, I get the necessary support, I get the necessary guidance in terms of being told that I think you're doing too much of this, and I think you must change. You're made to sober up a bbit, and for you to realize that there's more to life than work. It's your family, and of course with the kids and everyone. I think it's just great for anyone.
How do you manage those demands on your time? Thank you for granting us this interview, because journalists like myself are always wanting a piece of you as well.
Well, how do I manage? I try. I have learned from various other people. There are people who still surprise me how they do it, and I aspire to be like them. If I could mention another gentleman, Ivan Glazenberg in Switzerland. He's South African, but he lives in Switzerland. I have never seen a guy who manages his diary like that. He talks to anyone who's ever been his friend, or whoever he has ever been in contact with. And that's an important trait, an important characteristic, and I try very hard to be accessible to people. But I know that a lot of them become very frustrated because they can't get hold of me.
Let's talk about South Africa's future and your aspirations for the country. We're on a solid footing, and all things are working in our favor, especially with the focus on emerging markets over the problems in the developed world at the moment. Where do you see us 10 years from now?
I think South Africa has a bright future. I think South Africa has got the right heart. I think South Africa needs to do a couple of things right. I think we need just to focus on getting young people to go to school. It's just critical to go to school, get proper skills. I think that's very important. Discipline is very important. I think that's got to be part of whatever we're doing, which comes with accountability. If accountability is not there, I think we will battle. 3, I think the country and everyone who's a citizen of this country needs to know what the vision is for this country. I mean, 4 years ago, we knew that there was going to be a World Cup, and this vision drove us to do a lot of things, and we've achieved quite a lot. And I think if this country could have that one as a sign that we all see and we're pursuing, I think we'll go far.
As you said, life is full of surprises. What is in store for you beyond Exxaro? Not that you're leaving anytime soon, but what else do you want to do?
I would like to spend time with young people, mentoring people. I think that's where my passion is going to be.